I'm your host, Shane Haff, and you can follow me on Twitter at ShaneHaffNFL. I'm joined today by the best co-host in the game. You have heard him on not the Tough Cover Radio Show. I did it again, Mark. The Saturday morning spread right here on the Eagles Pinpool Network. It is Mark Henry Jr. Give him a follow on Twitter at Mark Henry Jr. NFL. Mark, I can see you're podcasting from your home studio today. So
Finally,
no road game for you this week. How are you doing today?
home game. Yeah, here we're not on a back-to-back on the road, so it's nice heading into the holidays here. Busy, busy, busy. So I'm happy to pop on here, and I think we're only going to be talking about the important games of the week. We're Xing out some of the extra fluff that we get to at this point of the season, but we've talked about it the last couple of weeks. It does feel like there's even more fluff than ever at this point of the season.
Yeah, we're gonna streamline the show a bit today, and we pride ourselves on talking about every game, and normally that's going to be what we do, and I'm sure we'll be back to that next week. However, this week, Christmas, crazy recording schedule, lots of stuff going on, and so we're trying to get out what we can. So we are going to cut some games. So if you are a fan of the Chiefs, Titans, Bengals, Dolphins, Jets, Saints, Vikings, or Giants, or Falcons, or Cardinals,
Shout
apologies.
out to the Falcons for hitting my bet, though. Shout out to them.
There you go. Apologies to you guys, but we're nixing those games because they did not involve a playoff team or a team in the playoff hunt, so we can actually get to the other games, and I can have time to get to film and all the other stuff we're trying to cram in before Christmas. So we'll talk about I say this lovingly, but we'll talk about your crappy teams next week. This week, we just got to get to the meat and potatoes. So
Hey, and for those people who are already in draft mode, believe me, we'll be there soon. Like in terms of once this NFL season ends, this podcast is an NFL draft podcast. So we'll be right back with you guys once the real football is done being played.
Yep, for sure. So, and like I said, we'll be back to the every game format a little bit next week too. But and Yakko chiming in, this felt like the highest rate of games of the year. Yeah, like Thursday night, I would have said was game of the year. Then Saturday night happens, and that could also, like, there's so many good games in this slate too. So let's dive into it. Thursday night football, we get Rams at Seahawks in a game that almost certainly decides the 1 seed. Obviously, there's still some chips to fall in this whole thing, but this is win or you're out of the 1 seed chase for the Seahawks. And if you do win, you're on the inside track, and it looked like the Rams were going to lock up this 1 seed. They had a 16-point lead late in the game. The Seahawks go on a drive that was capped with a 3rd and goal interception by Sam Darnold with about 9 minutes left. So you're down 16, you throw an interception in the red zone, but then the defense gets a 3-and-out, and then Rashid Shaheed returns the punt for a touchdown, and you get a 2-point conversion hit to make it a 1-score game. The defense gets another 3-and-out. 2 plays later, the Seahawks score another touchdown, and then the 2-point chaos ensues in this game. So you get a pass that was a backwards pass, batted forward at the line of scrimmage. The ball's just laying in the end zone after a Ram dives and tries to intercept it and doesn't. And you get Zach Charbonnet walks forward and just picks the ball up in the end zone. And it turns out to be a touchdown because it was a live ball, because it was a backwards pass. Really weird scenario there. It ends up tying up the game. So there's 6:20 left. It's tied. There were 6 more possessions in this game in the final 6 minutes, including a missed 48-yard field goal from the Rams. It ends up in overtime. In overtime, the Rams scored. Then the Seahawks score, and they go for 2, and they convert their 3rd straight 2-point conversion to win this game. It was a wild game. And I don't know what to feel about this game, about these teams. I mean, on one hand, we said the first time around, like, Darnold just collapsed. And Darnold throws 2 second-half interceptions in this game. So in 2 games against the Rams, he's thrown 6 interceptions. And they needed a punt return for a touchdown, a missed field goal from the Rams, 3 consecutive 2-point conversions just to win in overtime. their defense is supposed to be their calling card, but they give up 37 points and 581 yards, which doesn't seem great. But on the flip side, the Rams allowed that comeback to happen. And their offense goes cold in the fourth quarter. On their final 5 possessions, they went 3 and out 3 times and gained only 20 yards per drive. So, like, there's things you could pick at for both teams and say, like, man, it kind of makes me question the Seahawks defense. It makes me question Sam Darnold. It makes me question the Rams in these big spots. Or you can just say, man, this was an awesome game, and hope we get a third look at it in the playoffs. So, what are your overall thoughts? Where do you land, like, feeling about these teams after this game?
I I would probably say somehow I'm walking out feeling worse about Seattle. Like, because you said, I do think that the one thing that you can kind of had confidence in for Seattle was that the defense was never gonna, have a game where they could give up like 37. It felt like I mean, just I'd have to look at the highest total that they had given up before this was, well, they did give up 38 to Tampa one time, but besides that, they haven't given up more than 24 all year long. And the Tampa game was back on October 5th. I mean, that's 2.5 months ago at this point. So it's been all year of you've seen one team score 25 plus on Seattle, and that it was a long time ago. So you have to feel like, that's never going to happen. And then here we are, and they give up 37 to the Rams, 457 passing yards to Stafford, 225 yards to Puka, where it just felt like they refused to take him out of the game at risk of what Stafford would. And I get it. You don't want to double guys and go crazy bracketing guys, and then Stafford's going to pick you apart elsewhere. But at a certain point, Puka was, ruining your night. You have to do something about it. And it felt like they were unwilling to adjust. And he was just getting wide open down the field. I don't want to even take, like you said, I think the last point is the important one, where it's just these are two pretty darn good teams. And I don't want to penalize either of them in my head for how they look against each other a little bit. But it is eye-opening that Seattle's defense can be had like that. And to me, it looks like the Rams are going to be the 5 seed. Like, regardless of what happens with Seattle and San Fran, to me, it seems like the Rams, if they win out, which it looks like they should given their schedule, they should be the 5 seed going to either Carolina or Tampa Bay in round 1. So you lose and you cost yourself the 1 seed, you cost yourself home field throughout the playoffs, but you still should have a bye to the second round in that 5 seed through the NFC South. The interesting conversation for me becomes the Eagles are probably likely to be the 3rd seed. We'll see what happens with Chicago and Green Bay. I think it's very likely we get Bears Packers 3 in round 1, whether that's in Chicago or in Green Bay. I think it's very likely that's the 2-7. It's very likely the NFC South against the Rams is the 4-5. And then I think our opponent in the 3-6 comes down to we will play the loser of Seattle San Fran in week 18. Who would you rather see come to Philadelphia as the 6th seed?
I think I would rather see San Fran. So they're beat up. I think Purdy is a mid-tier quarterback. And I think they've got a defense that's really banged up. I think you can put up points on them. And obviously the Shanahan of it all, but I think the Eagles defense is playing really well right now. I would rather the Eagles offense have an easier matchup, which is the 49ers defense, not the Seahawks defense. Eagles Seahawks might be a 7-3 game, and that game is going to give me a heart attack in the third quarter. So I think I would much rather face the 49ers. I know you were pretty high on the 49ers in terms of potential Super Bowl contender last week, so I'm going to guess you would rather see the Seahawks.
Yeah, and for me, it really all comes back to a Sam Darnold. It's just
that's fair.
There's just I have visions. What's the Christmas? Is it the Grinch or is it the night before Christmas? Visions of sugar plums dancing in my head. I have visions of a Sam Darnold pick 6 in the link dancing in my head, because I do think you're getting one. Like in a playoff game with our defense applying the pressure, especially up the middle that they're going to on Sam. I think you're going to get you're gonna get one, whether that's Quinyon or Cooper, or,
Well, it's
Black,
not going to be
whatever.
Quinyon. He still can't
He
catch.
can't catch. He
The
can't.
the
It's
Eagles' luck,
unbelievable.
he's going to throw 2 would-be sixes that are going to be awesome pass breakups instead of pick sixes by Quinyon Mitchell. By the way, Eagles fans, if you're just tuning in for the first time, it's a running joke. I love Quinyon Mitchell. Don't hate me. Guy needs to get on the jugs machine. But
Is his only pick still that does he have any picks this year? Because I know he didn't have one until the playoff game against Washington last year, and he
I
got
don't.
his first in the playoffs. I don't think
No, he
has
got one against the Packers to seal the game in the playoffs last year.
I think it was the Packers, not
Because I
the-
called that one. He was my player of the game prediction in that game because I said he was going to get his first career interception.
I knew it was in the playoffs that he finally got one.
He does not have a regular season interception in his career.
That's so funny.
He got one against the Packers and one against the Commanders. So he got one in he got 2 in the postseason last year, yeah, but none in the regular season. Hey, he's going to turn it up for the postseason.
Yeah, Sam Darnold, watch out. But I do think you're going to get a big game-changing play out of Sam, and I think with the cracks that Seattle's defense showed, and with the inability to run the ball at times for Seattle, they were good. Kenneth Walker was awesome in this game, but it was a lot of he had one 55-yard run. You take that out, it's 10 carries for 45 yards, and I think there was another run in there that was 20 yards, and he kind of broke 3 crazy tackles. It didn't feel like a very repeatable run. I'm pretty sure 75 of those 100 yards on 11 carries came on 2 carries. But regardless, they don't have an extremely efficient and consistent run game.
Yeah.
So I think that's another reason. To me, it's less even about Purdy when it comes to San Fran. It's everything Purdy has to work with. It's you have Shanahan calling your praise. You have Christian McCaffrey to run the ball and to throw it to. You have George Kittle to throw it to. Trent Williams is blocking for you. But the thing about San Fran, I will say, is if any of Purdy, McCaffrey, Kittle, or Trent Williams are hurt going into the playoffs, which I guess there's only 2 weeks left for that to happen, they drop down to 6th on my list. But if I'm doing NFC power rankings right now in terms of who I can see winning the NFC, it's Rams, Eagles, 49ers, Seahawks, Bears, Packers would be my 6.
Yeah, I guess I just ultimately come back to I would rather challenge the Eagles' elite defense.
It's fair. It's a
to
fair
go
point.
compete with the 49ers offense and give our offense the easier matchup than challenge the Eagles offense to go take on the Mike McDonald Seahawks and trust the defense to pick up the slack. So that's where I come down with it. But yeah, I mean, either way, you get a massive matchup on one side of the ball, depending on who it is, that is massively in your favor and one that's going to be pretty tough. So
I don't think there's a wrong answer. And what I will say is thank you to the Seattle Seahawks for winning this game on Thursday and making it so that the Eagles cannot go to LA most likely in the playoffs, and also making it so that LA will probably also not be the 6th seed in the playoffs. They'll probably be the 5. So I think all things considered, if you're an Eagles fan looking at how can we get the best possible path going forward in the playoffs to give us a chance at making a run, it's not going to LA at any point, and it's avoiding the Rams most likely in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs.
Yeah.
We can quibble about Seattle or San Fran or Chicago or Green Bay, or are we afraid to go to Chicago? We can talk all that stuff out. I think we all agree avoiding the Rams and avoiding going to LA in general is fantastic news.
Yeah, for sure. So, all right, well, let's get on to the Saturday game. The Saturday night game, Green Bay at Chicago. And this game also had a wild finish. So Chicago wins this one 22-16. This is also overtime. Overtime thrillers across the NFC this week. But let's start at the beginning, where both teams went on 5+ minute opening drives that resulted in turnover on downs, which is kind of crazy. Each team ended the first half with only 3 possessions, and the score was 6-0 Packers, courtesy of 2 goal-to-go field goals. Jordan Love was concussed in the second quarter of this game, so Malik Willis comes in. He plays well, 9 of 11 for 121 yards and a touchdown. He rushed for 44 yards. By the way, I loved Malik Willis back in the draft. Thought he would have been a great backup for Jalen Hurts, and he's been a great backup for Jordan Love. But the Packers lead this game 16-6. 5:03 left in the game. They kick a field goal just before the 2-minute warning. And then they go onside kick, which is game over. Nobody recovers onside kicks except the Bears did. And then they score a touchdown with 24 seconds left on a 4th and 4. They kicked the extra point and took it to overtime instead of going for 2 in the win. I think they felt all the momentum was on their side. They're at home. They're facing a backup quarterback. Let's prolong this game.
Did you agree with it in the moment?
Yeah. Yeah, I am not opposed to going for 2 in the win at the end of regulation, given circumstances. I think that's a pretty circumstantial thing. And in that circumstance, at home, you've just completed a wild comeback, you're facing a backup quarterback, I'd probably do that. Like, if I'm going to defer in overtime, I'm definitely committing myself to going for 2 in overtime if it gets there, but I'm probably going to make you get it there first. And so they do. They get a turnover on downs, and then Caleb Williams connects with DJ Moore on a 46-yard post route to win the game. A great throw, great catch. Burns Kason Nixon, who ironically cheap shotted him earlier in the game. So that was just a perfect little karma moment there. But another wild game on Saturday night. What were your thoughts on this one?
This is Chicago's 6th win this year that they have been trailing under 2 minutes to go in the game. That's a record since 1970.
Wow.
It's unbelievable what the Bears have done late in games. It's why Caleb Williams is called the Iceman in Chicago, because man, they are coming from behind and winning these games like crazy. I'll tell you what, in the moment, I actually thought they should have went for 2, because I felt like they had Green Bay's defense on their heels at that point, and it's supposed to be, a 60% chance at going for 2, so theoretically that is better than overtime. But you were right. In most situations, I would be pretty critical of a team not going for 2 in that spot, but with Malik Willis on the field on the other side of the ball, I think it is a little bit more fair, and how could I question Ben Johnson, with how good he's been late in games. And man, it is certainly interesting, Shane, that in week 2, Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions decided to, go for 2 and go for it on 4th, up 45-21 on Chicago, and pour it on, and the fans are booing the crap out of Ben Johnson, and the players are saying nonsense in the post game, saying this is about the roster, not about the coaching, yada yada yada. Would be a real shame if after that game you went like 7-6 and the other team went like 10-2 after that, or whatever.
And they got the 2 seed, and you missed the playoffs.
It would be a real shame if that happened. I don't know who I'm talking about, but it would be a real shame.
What's funny is before that, I liked seeing the Lions do well, be in the playoffs after all the years of nothingness. But after the week 2, they went full heel turn, and I was like, all right, like they're fun for me to root against now. You were not. I've been anti-Lions for quite some time, and yeah,
and we have had our wars with Lions Twitter during draft season before, and I think at times looking back, they've been right at times as well. But I think Lions fans can be very, very annoying on Twitter, and Shane fully heel turned with me once we got to week 2, when they were insufferable during that. By the way, we have some funny comments. I saw you commenting along over there. We have a UK listener who thought our show was called Chalk Talk, like chock full of. We are chock full of talk here
we are.
on Chalk Talk. So I didn't know if that was is that a British term, like chock full of? It might be. I don't know.
It's a term. I don't know if it's British, but yeah, chalk, which is how it's spelled, but I never pronounce it that way. I don't know. Maybe that's probably a Southern accent thing. Chalk talk.
I don't notice. I don't notice you going.
Talk.
Yeah, I don't notice that. By the way, before I forget this, it was about last game. Because we talked about strategy with should you go for two to end this one. I saw some of this about Thursday, and before I give my opinion, I want to ask you real fast. There was people out there saying it was the Rams' fault for not going for two, getting the ball first, and scoring in overtime to prevent Seattle from being able to do that. What would you say to that?
Man, that's tough because if you don't get it, all you have to do is give up a touchdown. I don't think you go for two first in overtime,
Yeah, I
personally. I
think it's
mean,
crazy.
I think because you have the advantage, right? If you score and you kick the extra point, they either have to kick the extra point and give the ball back to you with a chance to win, or they have to go for two, which I would assume. Yeah, I would not. I would not go for two opening in overtime. Probably, I think you're pretty committed to just kicking the extra point at that point.
The
Um,
risk, how I would say it is the risk of then not getting it and losing the game on an extra point is
yeah,
far worse than the potential bonus of stopping the team from going all the way down and scoring a touchdown and then winning the game by going for two. I thought that was insane criticism out there.
yeah. I'm not sure what like the game theory would suggest on that, because it's a newer development too to overtime. So we may see patterns over time, but I think that's part of the fun of the overtime right now is no legitimately nobody knows what's optimal. Like there's a strong argument to take the ball first and there's a strong argument to defer. And I kind of like that. Like I like that there's a strategic element to that instead of a clear-cut answer.
It should just be 15 instead of 10. It should be 15 minutes.
Yeah.
The 10-minute things where now like the team that gets the ball second might have to like be running 2-minute drill a little bit is like dumb.
Yeah.
But and I don't know why that. Like I don't know. I still don't really under. It's player
It's all
safety.
about just not playing a lot of extra football in the regular season. I don't mind it, I guess, for the regular season since in the playoffs it doesn't matter. Like
Yeah.
the time's not a factor. But
Yeah. Is it untimed completely in the playoffs? I can't remember.
I don't think it's untimed because I do think if it goes to a second quarter, they flip sides of the field.
Okay.
But I could be wrong, but I think it's a 15-minute overtime and you flip sides of the field. Like there's not a it's tied or we're winning at the end of a quarter. It's sudden death after each team gets a possession.
Yeah, and Yako has a great comment. It is also why most college teams don't go for two in the first OT when they score first.
Yeah.
It's a good point because then you
Yeah.
can lose on the extra point. Yeah.
Right. All right. What game? Oh, we're on to
That
Sunday
was
now.
Saturday. We're on to Sunday.
Okay, on to Sunday. Buffalo at Cleveland. Buffalo wins 23-20, and the Bills score touchdowns on their first three possessions, and they're up 20-10. And after that, they only gained 50 yards for the rest of the game, and their only points came courtesy of an interception that led to a short field goal. This was not a good Josh Allen game. 12 of 19 passing for 130 yards, 17 yards rushing. James Cook was really the only offense they had. He rushed for 117 yards and two touchdowns, but 100 of those yards and both touchdowns, again, were in the first three possessions. So Cleveland defense stepped up. The Bills didn't necessarily have answers for that, but the Bills defense got them an interception that lets them get the game-winning field goal. And Shadur Sanders was up and down in this game. He completed his first 8 passes, including a touchdown pass on the opening drive, but he also threw 2 picks. So you continue just kind of the up and down with him and what he is and what he's going to turn into. And we're not going to have referendums on his career after a partial rookie season, but if you're a Browns fan, you can probably convince yourself that the highs are worth investing into and hoping for the best. And if you are not, and if you want to be a detractor, you can point to a lot of things too. So we'll see how that plays out over the next year or two, I'm sure. Last guy I'll mention is your guy, Gregory Rousseau. Had 9 pressures in this game, 2.5 sacks, a 32.1% pressure rate. So great game for Rousseau. The Bills eke one out in Cleveland.
They have a lot of my guys there in Buffalo because I know I've seen my Buffalo people bragging. I'm checking to see, and I know we don't care about PFF grades. Yeah, his PFF grade's not that good. But Deone Walker has gotten a lot of positive buzz. He's played a lot of snaps for a first year guy there in Buffalo. Yeah, 394 snaps on the year. So he's great. His PFF grade actually is like middle of the pack. But I don't have much to say on this game other than just kind of taking stock of where Buffalo is as a contender. Because I think the AFC title odds right now are so interesting. We have a three-way tie for the favorite of the AFC, and we've had this like a couple times this year. And I don't know if we've ever had this. We have the Patriots, Broncos, and Bills are all plus 350, all tied as the odds-on favorite to win the AFC. And then you have the Jags, who just beat the Broncos by 14 in Denver, and we'll get to that, but they're at plus 550. The Texans plus 700, Chargers plus 800. Pick your poison. I have no idea who's winning the AFC. None. No idea. Buffalo was not impressive in this game at all.
Yeah, not at all. If you had to pick one of those teams, you had to put money on one of those teams right now. Who are you picking at their odds? So odds considered.
If Houston didn't look bad yesterday, I would have considered saying Houston, but I'll go New England. Like, I'm not confident in it. I still maintain my position that whoever wins Patriots Bills, if it ever happens or whenever it happens, will win the AFC in the playoffs.
I declared I was in on the Broncos last Tuesday, and that lasted 6 days because now I'm out again. I kind of think if I had to take the odds, give me the Chargers. And it's not that I necessarily think they're the best team, but factoring in the odds, like Herbert's been awesome and he mitigates pressure really well. Maybe they can go on a run. I don't look at other teams in the AFC outside of Denver and be like, man, this defense might just really kill the Chargers. And, maybe they run into the Broncos and they do get steamrolled or something like that. But yeah, the AFC is a mess, man. I'm not sure. The Patriots would probably be my number two, which feels so weird because I know their roster is bad. Well, I guess it's not bad, but it's not the level of some of these other teams.
It would be a little Bengals-ish from when the Bengals made the Super Bowl. It'd be very similar. And honestly, those Bengals teams had to beat better teams than I think the Patriots would have to beat because they had to beat the Chiefs to get there. I think the path before that was kind of easy. I think they played the Raiders and the Titans. If I remember correctly, before they got to that. But to me, and you're right, like I think you looked at it and you're like, I don't see any other great defense there in the AFC. To me, I'm just looking at it and I'm like, give me May and Josh over Bo, Trevor, Stroud. And then Herbert to me is more because I just don't believe in the rest of the team enough. And
there's an argument for the Jags too. If they hadn't disappointed me so many times over the last few years, it's almost just like, I'm not going to let you get me again. But the AFC playoffs are going to be really interesting to see how they shake out.
Yeah, it looked like last night, if the Ravens would have won that game, there was a real-world path to the 1-seed Jags. And that path was the Chargers winning in Week 18. It really wasn't that ridiculous. It was the Jags winning out and taking care of their business. And then the Chargers beat the Broncos and take the division from them. They would have flipped to either the 2 or the 3, and Jacksonville would have went all the way up to 1. But New England wins that game, which makes it hard for the Jags to pass the Patriots.
Yeah. Well, let's talk Chargers. Chargers beat the Cowboys 34-17. Cowboys officially eliminated from the playoffs. The Chargers officially clinched the playoffs as well, I think. But each team had 3 first half possessions in this game, and each team had 3 first half scores. So it was 2 touchdowns and a field goal for Dallas, 3 touchdowns for the Chargers. So 21-17 at half, but Dallas wouldn't score in the second half. And this was the most Dak Prescott stat line of all time. 21-30, 244 yards, 2 touchdowns. He has a good game on the box score, and yet they scored 0 points in the second half of a very winnable game and gained only 99 yards. So there's 2 versions of the Dak Prescott box score game. There's this one where it looks really good. You just did nothing the second half and lost a winnable game. And then there's the bad first half where you pad stats to look awesome and lose a game that wasn't really that close. So we went with the first option this time. On the other side of the ball, Justin Herbert goes 23 of 29 for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also rushed for 42 yards and a touchdown, but more impressively, especially given the state of that offensive line, is that he took 0 sacks in this game. So clean game for Herbert, clean game for the Chargers, and they put one on the Cowboys.
The Cowboys are a joke. Where are all the Brian Schottenheimer think pieces, by the way, that we were seeing about a month ago about, oh, maybe he was actually a really good hire, and he's dealing with the people. The people love him in the building and whatever, all that nonsense. The Cowboys were one of the fakest teams ever this year, and honestly should be 5-9-1 because the Eagles blew a 21-0 lead where about a Saquon fumble, a punt fumble, and about a billion other things had to happen to lose that game. But anyway, the Chargers, I'm not gonna take too much away from this because I think the Cowboys are a dead team walking. Herbert was awesome in this game, but what I will say is, actually, before I say this, if Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater were on this team, I think they'd win the Super Bowl. I honestly fully think they would be clearly the best team in the NFL if this team had Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater. I think they're 2 of the 4 best players on their roster. And here they are 11-4, basically with nothing from either of them. Joe Alt, I forget when he got hurt, but it was
which is sad because it's not like they've neglected their offensive line like a team like the Texans has. They have invested into the offensive line and they have hit on their investments, and they just all got hurt at the same time. So it's terrible luck for the Chargers there.
But what I will say is the 2 rookies who they drafted in the first 2 rounds, who gave me a lot of optimism about the Chargers this year, who have been either up and down or just not able to get on the field enough, Marion Hampton and Trey Harris. Marion Hampton was really good in this game, 16 carries for 85 yards. He came back. I guess he came. Yeah, he came back in the Eagles game. He's looked pretty good since he's come back, and I think the Chargers offense has taken a step in the run game in these last 3 games. He's had more yards and more carries in each of the last 3 games since he came back. So that adds a wrinkle in there and helps the O-line a lot. And then Trey Harris, last 2 games, 49 and 54 yards after, that makes up about, more than, I guess, like about 30 to 40% of his production on the whole year, to be honest. But Greg Roman gave a long quote about Trey Harris about how, he came from a Burger King offense in college, you have it your way offense, and he has to fit into our offense and all this stuff, and he's finally there, and he made 0 mental mistakes last week, and he's going to get more chances down the stretch, and we're so excited about the future. So I was disappointed in the first half of the year, and for most of the year, that Trey Harris just hadn't gotten as many opportunities as I expected, but it seems like he's getting more worked into the offense these last couple of weeks, and I've loved what he made. He made a really nice catch in this game, and he could add another kind of dynamic playmaker to that offense, especially more so going forward than just this year.
Yeah. All right, well, let's keep rolling. Let's go to the NFC South, where the Panthers beat the Buccaneers 23-20. They take the inside track for the ones, or not the 1 seed. That's crazy talk. For winning the awful NFC South that shouldn't even have a playoff team. The key stretch for the Panthers was the end of the second quarter. They kick a field goal, get a 3-and-out, and then score a touchdown to take a 13-10 lead into half. And then they have a touchdown drive to start the third. So they lose that lead, but then they give up, or they score a touchdown drive of their own to retake the lead. So the game ends up tied with under 3 minutes or with 6 minutes left. They go on a field goal drive. They have a 3-minute lead, and then Baker Mayfield starts to drive the field and then throws a pick to end the game. So the Panthers move ahead now in this race. The Bucs can still get to the playoffs. They would have to win out against Miami and then Carolina in Week 18. But they have lost 7 of their last 9, so it seems pretty unlikely, but who knows what happens in divisional games if they can get past the Dolphins. I believe it doesn't matter what the Panthers do this week, so they're in that weird spot where you could rest starters in Week 17 and gear up for Week 18. But Bryce Young was 21-32 in this game for 191 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also rushed for 20 yards. Crazy stat here, Mark. This game was his sixth game-winning drive of the year, and so he trails Jake Delhomme by one for the most game-winning drives in a single season in franchise history. He also trails only Justin Herbert for most game-winning drives prior to age 25 by one. He has 12. Herbert had 13. So we are officially on record watch for Bryce Young. Maybe he pulls. Be hilarious if he pulls that off in Week 18 to clinch the playoffs against the Bucks.
The Bucks are 1-6 in their last 7 games, with Baker averaging 170 passing yards per game and 5.9 yards per attempt, with a 79.5 passer rating. Yeesh,
it's bad.
I don't know what there is much more to say about this game than Baker threw it away, because that pick at the end of the game is one of the worst picks you'll see. I mean, just running the complete opposite direction. He threw it, directly at a Panther as opposed to anywhere near a Buccaneer. So I didn't watch this game and have like a positive takeaway about Carolina. They couldn't run the ball at all in this game. Bryce Young was, I guess, like fine in this game.
Rico Dowdle fever was fun for a month.
Yeah, well, it feels like they've played. I guess he's had a pretty good year. Yeah, it mostly was from October 5th to November 2nd, though. Not great since then, honestly. Yeah, only one good game since then. So it is. I don't know what happened to their run game. I know Chuba Hubbard did have one nice game sprinkled in there recently. Against the Rams. Chuba Hubbard had 17 for 83 against the Rams. But to me, this is much more of a negative Bucks game than a positive Panthers game. And I know that there's a lot of Bucks fans that want Todd Bowles fired, which is, he's had a lot of regular season success. But I think the Bucks not winning this division would be a failure, especially when you've let, Dave Canales and Liam Cohen walk over these last 2 years. Maybe it's time for a shakeup.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I probably agree with that. And I kind of remember, I remember us having a conversation back in the offseason that, like, all the pieces are there. And the question for us was Bowles as the head coach. Like,
yep.
The roster we felt like was there for a potential, like, they had a Super Bowl roster, we thought. Now, obviously, they've been really banged up all season.
Yeah.
But we were questioning Bowles before the season started if he could ever get over that hump. And I think that's fair to re-examine headed into the offseason.
Yeah, I think I would move on.
Yeah. So, okay, let's get into the afternoon slate. A couple of key games here. Jacksonville at Denver. I'm getting hungry over here. Jacksonville wins 34-20. Trevor Lawrence is playing really well right now. I mean, you can write off the Jets game, and we did last week a little bit because they're terrible, but the Broncos have an awesome defense. And he went 23 of 36 for 279 yards with 3 touchdowns. He also rushed for a touchdown. Now, he did take 5 sacks, but still. In his last 4 games, he's thrown for over 1,000 yards with 14 total touchdowns and 0 interceptions. So take that for what you will with the playoffs looming, which have traditionally not been a great time for the Jags. But Trevor Lawrence is playing really good football right now. And the Jags are 6-3 against teams with a winning record right now. The Broncos are only 3-3 for the record too on where they're at against 500 teams. But for the Broncos, RJ Harvey had a good game, probably his best game for the Broncos. Goes 7 for 50 with a touchdown as a rusher, and he caught 4 passes for 71 yards as a receiver. Bo Nix, 28 of 47 for 352 with a touchdown and a pick. And it wasn't Nix's best game, but again, like, they're not going to win a lot of games when they give up 34 points. They need the defense to play better, and they didn't in this one. And I think it's as simple as that.
And yeah, you said that I had the Trevor numbers from the last 4 weeks queued up and ready to go because they've been unbelievable. But I decided, let's back it up even further here. And in the last 10 games, he has 2,423 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 6 picks. Over a full season sample, if that was prorated over a full season, he'd be on pace for 4,120 yards, 34 touchdowns, and 10 picks. I mean, that'd be a pretty fantastic season. for Trevor. So, and also he'd be on pace for about 500 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns on the ground. So, Trevor's been unbelievable this last month, and he's been really good for about 2.5 months at this point. So we're kind of seeing that first half of or the second half 2022 Trevor with first half 2023 Trevor that we hadn't seen in a year and a half before Liam Cohen came on board. So Liam Cohen and Ben Johnson look like they're immediately two just top 10 head coaches going forward. Or at least like if you were ranking who you, yeah, I think it's fair to say two top 10 head coaches going forward.
Yeah, did you see the Sean Payton Liam Cohen beef?
Yeah.
So this is great. So earlier in the week, Sean Payton said, talking about the Jaguars, said, quote, "As you look at them and you watch the tape, it's a smaller market, but you see a good team." So taking a little shot at the Jags for being a small market team. So of course, after the game, Liam Cohen in his press conference said, quote, "A small market team like us can come into Mile High and get it done." And I loved that too. Liam Cohen, stock up. We've talked about a lot of times how we both think Sean Payton is one of the best coaches in the NFL. And also we both hate the man. So always fun seeing somebody take a shot at him after beating him. So Liam Cohen, massive stock up after this one.
Yeah, he's the man. Liam Cohen. I'm a big Cohen.
So, all right, let's keep going. Pittsburgh at Detroit, another wild game, chaos ensuing at the end. But this game was 12-10 going into the fourth quarter. And then there was a run of 4 straight touchdown drives. The Steelers get the ball back. They're up 5 with 4 minutes left, and they drove down to the 18-yard line for a chip shot field goal, and Chris Boswell missed it. So instead of being up 8, they're only up 5 now, and the Lions drive downfield to the 1-yard line. They get a touchdown nullified by offensive pass interference on what I personally didn't think was a very good call. But the Steelers also had one of those against them earlier in the game, so whatever, we can offset those, I guess. But I just don't think, I don't think you can call offensive pass interference. Yes, it was supposed to be a pick route, but the receiver is also redirected by the cornerback into another guy. I don't feel like you can fault the receiver for that. So I thought that was a bad call, but it nullifies the touchdown. It's 1st and goal from the 11 now. Then they false start. It's 1st and goal from the 16. It all ends up with a 4th and goal from the 9. They throw to the goal line. Amon-Ra St. Brown catches it inches short of the goal line and gets stood up, pushed back 4 yards. And then as he's falling to the ground, he laterals it to Goff, who catches it and dives into the end zone. And there's flags everywhere. It ends up being negated by a penalty. It was an obvious push. I know Lions fans are going to be grumpy after the OPI on 1st and goal, and you can have a discussion about that one. It was clear as day offensive pass interference on the push-off, and even if it wasn't, I don't know how that doesn't get blown dead for forward progress. He stood up at the goal line and is 5 yards pushed back down the field. So, I don't know. Anyways, I think it was properly officiated. There was lots of consternation, which is the best, right? We get the drama without feeling like the officials actually screwed it up. Although that announcement was something else. In Detroit Stadium after a 2-minute conference, and I know you always say the result of the play and then a penalty, but he's the ruling on the field is a touchdown. However, as the crowd starts to cheer, that was rough. But anyways, there was also a crazy play in this game where Kenny Gainwell caught a pass laying on the ground, so defensive pass interference led to a collision. He's laying on the ground and catches the ball, but the defender isn't touching him anymore, so he gets up and runs it in for a touchdown. That one was crazy. He ended 9 for 50 as a runner, 5 for 78 with a touchdown as a receiver. Jaylen Warren had 14 carries for 143 yards and 2 touchdowns as a rusher. I feel like I keep having the same takeaway for these two teams. For the Steelers, it's that Rodgers is playing well. He's done that the last several weeks. And now, they're a step closer to the playoffs. Mike Tomlin gets to extend his winning streak to 19 seasons, I think it is now. And for the Lions, it's that Jahmyr Gibbs wasn't involved in the run game. 7 carries for 2 yards. A month ago, he had 219 yards in an overtime win against the Giants. In the 4 games since, he only has 151 yards combined. So they're not getting him involved. The run game has been real hit or miss. And so the Lions are on, they're on life support for getting to the playoffs. For the Steelers, with the Ravens' loss on Sunday night, the Steelers only need to win one of their final 2 games now to win the division. They have Cleveland and then Baltimore. So they could take care of business and lock it up in Week 17, rendering Week 18 meaningless and giving him a chance to rest Rodgers a little bit. So what are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, 12 carries for 15 yards for Detroit is pathetic. It's also pathetic for Detroit, Mr. Biting kneecaps, and we're going to be more physical than you to give up 481 total yards to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I wonder what their season high on the year is. I can't imagine that they've had. I wonder if Pittsburgh's had 400 yards in a game before this game. Maybe I'm underselling it, but it felt like this was by far the most efficient we've seen the Steelers offense look. And I think the score and the ending of the game makes it seem like it was a closer game than it actually was. The Steelers were up 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, up 22-10. The Lions come back and score, and the Steelers immediately score again to go up 12. I mean, the Steelers were up 12 until there were 4 minutes left in the game. And Detroit scores a touchdown to go down 5. They end up getting a stop and getting the ball back, and then we had the end of the game. But the Steelers controlled like the second half of that game, where they were up by more than one score for most of it. So I had the Lions to finish a parlay. I was not happy that the Lions lost this game. I am happy that their season looks like it's over. But I, as someone who was rooting for the Lions in that moment, didn't really have a problem with the first OPI. Even like I get what your point is, and I think they're probably a little gung ho on pick plays to call it in general. But when it happened, I wasn't like upset or surprised. I guess it was a late flag on that first OPI, so it felt like you had the full touchdown celebration, and then 20 seconds later you heard the call. But I didn't have a problem with anything that happened with the officials in that game outside of not blowing the play dead. If you just blow that play dead, there's no controversy really even about the OPI, because it wouldn't have been a touchdown anyway.
Yeah. So I looked this up while you were talking there. It looks like they had 396 yards back in Week 7 in a loss at Cincinnati, and that's the closest they've been.
Yeah, I mean, it was by far the most functional the Steelers' offenses looked all year long.
Yeah. So, all right. Let's keep rolling. Las Vegas at Houston. Houston wins 23-21. Derek Stingley had a pick 6 in the first quarter, and it was the only touchdown scored by the Texans until their final drive of the fourth quarter, not counting when they ran the clock out. So they were outgained by the Raiders, but they hit a bunch of field goals to narrowly win. Stroud had a rough day. He threw 35 times for only 187 yards against a hapless Raiders defense. Makes you feel not as good about the Texans, like you mentioned earlier. Meanwhile, Ashton Genty had the best game of his rookie season. He has 128 yards and a touchdown on the ground on 24 carries. He also had a 60-yard touchdown reception. That one reception made him their leading receiver for the game as well. So big Ashton Genty game. Still comes in a loss, though, and the Texans, just still concerned about this defense, Mark.
Yeah, I'm shocked that the Raiders were able to move the ball the way that they were. It just feels like, I mean, this Raiders offense has been stuck in the mud in terms of the run game, and then the quarterbacks have been so bad all year long. It kept popping to this game on Red Zone, and Pete Carroll celebrating touchdowns and celebrating big plays on offense, which I don't think I've seen all year long for the Raiders. So I'm going to not take away too much of the game. It felt like Houston probably just came in flat, but certainly takes a little steam off of all the nobody wants to play the Texans, they're the hottest team in the sport stuff.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the Sunday night game then. New England at Baltimore. New England wins 28-24. And the Ravens blew a 2-score lead in the fourth quarter, which is basically the same thing we've talked about for 2 or 3 years now. They're up 24-13 with 12 minutes left, and they give up a touchdown drive. Then they punt. They give up another touchdown drive, and they have a last chance, and they fumble to lose the game. Now, it's worth mentioning Lamar Jackson left this game in the second quarter with an injury and was replaced by Tyler Huntley, but still, they had the lead. They fumbled it away. Drake May has his first 300-yard game of his career, which is wild to me. I didn't actually realize this was the first one until I was looking back at it. But goes 21 of 44 for 380 yards and 2 touchdowns. He did have a pick. He also rushed for 25 yards. Stephon Diggs had 9 catches for 138 yards. And I just think the Patriots are a perfect example of how quickly you can turn a team around with the right coach and the right quarterback. This time last year, they were 3-12. Now they're 12-3, and they're not doing it with a great roster. They have the most cap space of any team in the NFL right now. And the difference between them and number 2 is greater than the distance between number 2 and number 32.
Wow.
So they have a tremendous amount of cap space going into next year. I mean, hopefully they do it the right way and not what the Commanders did and just go sign the oldest guys available. But there's a real chance that the Patriots, with a good offseason, could be extremely relevant for years to come again.
Yeah, I mean, they could go to the Super Bowl this year and then go out and spend a ton of money and be much better next year. It really is. This was just, I feel like I've seen a negative reaction to this game from the Patriots, like needing to come from behind. They were an underdog in this game. Like, I understand we don't like Baltimore and we don't think they're very good, and they're still a tough team to play, especially in Baltimore in the cold. And I think this was an impressive comeback, and mainly just because Drake May willed it. I mean, you saw that ball to the pylon. I believe that was the touchdown to go down by 4 or 3, whatever it was, that they needed to score again. That was the first touchdown of the fourth quarter. But man, that was one of the better throws you'll ever see in an NFL game, and that's the reason I'm not willing to quit on the Patriots as an AFC contender, because his ability to just will deep balls into completely changing the tenor of the game is huge. Same thing with Josh making those big plays, and yeah, the comment there about Derrick Henry, this game had less to do about the Ravens to me with Lamar going out. This game was all about New England showing that they could come from behind and they could kind of play in a close game, and Drake May could deliver them a victory at the end of a game. And I'm choosing to look at this positively for New England and not even really think about it too much from the Baltimore angle.
Yep. Cursed season from Baltimore.
And Travion Henderson went out in this game with a concussion in the first half. So they did everything that they were able to do in the second half without a big piece of what they've been doing from an explosive angle lately.
Well, they have a lot of practice because they did everything they did for the first 8 weeks of the season without Travion Henderson, too, for some inexplicable reason. But I guess I'll trust Vrabel based on the results. But, man, I remember beating our heads against the wall about that earlier in the year.
Yeah, week 1 through 7, he did not have more than 32 yards. And then he had between 55 and 148 yards his last 7 games before this one.
Yeah, wild stuff there. So, all right, well, that is going to about do it for this one, guys. Again, apologies. We skipped a few of these games, but it's weird schedules this week with Christmas, and we wanted to get something out. So if we did not talk about your team, we'll be back to that probably next week as we continue the road to the playoffs here. But, Mark, before we get out in here, somehow we managed to still go almost an hour because there's just lots of playoff relevant stuff to talk about at this point in the season. But do you have any final thoughts that you want to drop on the people before we get out of here?
Only 2 NFL bets that I like for this entire week in week 17, and I'll give them outlay ahead of time here on, is it Saturday, the 27th? Yeah, that would be Saturday. Give me the Texans plus 2.5 at the Chargers. I think that's going to be a bad matchup for the Chargers O-line. I know Herbert's done a good job mitigating pressure. But I think this is a bad matchup. Give me the Houston Texans in that one. But my bet of the week, shuck me the money. New Orleans, give me -2.5 at Tennessee. Tyler Shuck gonna win that game and get to 5-2 as a starter in the NFL on a team that was 1-8 before he took over. That's not nothing. Like
No.
Tyler Shuck, give me Tyler Shuck over Jackson Dart and Cam Ward and Shador and every other quarterback in that class who I liked more than Shuck pre-draft. I am so impressed with what he's doing.
Yeah. I I guess I didn't watch Dart play this week. He's
Oh,
been
good.
off. Okay, was it bad?
He had like 33 passing yards playing a
Okay.
full game.
I was gonna say he's been off my radar for a bit, but from what I saw from him, I liked him, but he's not going to have a long career. We'll say it that way. So, all right, well, that's going to do it here. I hope you guys have a Merry Christmas. Maybe you're listening to this on the road to visit relatives, whatever it might be. I hope you guys all have a great Christmas. Stay safe out there, and we will be back next week. Well, I'll be back later this week, film show with Johnny, but we'll be back next week for Chalk Talk, lots of other content, so you guys keep it tuned right here to the Eagles Pin Pool Network. We certainly always appreciate you guys. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications so you don't miss us when we go live. Follow us on Twitter. I'm at Shane Half NFL. He is at Mark Henry Jr. NFL. And we will catch you guys next time.